Welcome back to the Hero Shield project. This is part 3 in the series. We're back in Autodesk Maya. Last tutorial we created not only the shield but the star. Now we're going to flip over to the back side and start the back part of the shield. If you look at the picture here, this is just an image off the internet I stole. We have here sort of a strap. I don't know if this is exactly how it was designed in Marvel's Avengers, the Captain America shield. But regardless, we're going to create our own kind of strap, and once you have one, you can duplicate it and send it to the other side. So you don't have to have it, you don't have to model all these different pieces, for example. So we're going to model sort of this sort of piece here, this larger piece. Then we're going to model one little curved little area for the loop of the strap to go through, and then maybe a bolt in this tutorial. We'll do the strap another tutorial. And basically start duplicating them and sending around. So we'll see how much we can get done in this tutorial, but as you can see with this major unit, this large area, you can see that the big circle, it covers up a little bit of the circle, and it's about a little bit smaller in terms of the height of the circle, and then comes over. Now looking at this, I would say a rectangle is probably going to be the best form to work with, which is the cube. So in here in Maya, we're going to rotate and we're going to create a cube. Click on the create cube icon here. Again, that's under create, polygon primitives, choose cube, and make sure interactive creation is unchecked. And then you'll have the cube in here. So I'm going to flip to the back side here. I'm going to start scaling this down so we get an appropriate size. So in terms of the width, the size here I think needs to come down a little bit. Our circle is about that big, so we want it to be probably a little bit bigger than our circle, just because our circle is a little bit smaller than the other one. And then we want to scale from the green cube down to flatten it a little bit. So we want it to be flat, kind of like about that much. And then we need to scale it in with the red cube to get something kind of rectangular, something like that looks pretty good. Now, what we can then do is we can rotate both the top and the bottom here to get that angle we want, but we want to place it kind of where we want it to go first. So I'm going to move it over to over here, and I'm going to go to my orthographic view, which is the top view here, and I'm seeing it in wireframe mode. I was in wireframe before, but if you're in shaded solid mode, you can go to wireframe by hitting number what is it, number 4, and I have the object selected now. Sometimes it's difficult to select the object, so you may need to go into your 3/4 view, select the object, then come over here and right click, go to vertex mode. Now if for some reason it selects the shield, you may have to isolate this object first. What I'm going to do is select these two guys here, and I'm going to rotate the vert. So I'm going to click E for rotation, and I'm going to rotate it so that basically this line kind of lines up with an angle that goes out. Now it doesn't have to be any particular angle. I'm going for something kind of like that. I think will look pretty good. And then I'm going to go down here and do the same thing. Just again, marquee select over those verts and then rotate. As long as I do the marquee select where I drag across in this ortho view, we're going to get all 4 vertices selected. You can see here and here. Now they're not exactly angled exactly correct. If I want to be exact, I could use a grid or something else, but I'm going to kind of eyeball it. So maybe with this one, I actually think I like this angle better. So I'm going to come over here to the green, and just kind of rotate it a little bit more in the 3D space. So we get more of kind of like a 45 kind of degree angle kind of cut here. And all I'm doing is grabbing this middle sort of I think it was green originally, the rotation there. And then that looks pretty good. I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to right click, go to object mode. And then what I can do now is select the 2 faces here. So I can switch to my selection tool, right click, choose face, click on this face, and then hold the shift key and select that face same time. And then what I can do then is see sort of up above here and click on the extrude tool. And again, that's under the edit mesh tool, extrude, there it is. And then grab that blue arrow and drag out. And what will happen is it'll drag both of them at the same time, as you can see here. in both directions, something like that. And I might want mine to come in a little bit further. Like, it doesn't have to follow exactly the same design, so I might want mine to come in a little bit further, kind of like that. Now, right now we're not getting any what they call penetration to the form, so I could drag the arrows down like that, and that would happen. But notice this one's not doing the same. It's actually going the opposite direction. So I'm going to undo that by hitting Control Z or Command Z on the Mac. What I want to do is go into vertex mode. So I'm going to right click, go to vertex mode, and I'm going to select all the vertices on this. And there's lots of different ways to do this, but basically I'm going to drag the arrow down from the center and just see if, I basically just want to get close to the penetration, and then pretty close where you feel like it's connected. Probably something like that. There, it looks pretty good, and we're not really seeing too much of it. And then what you can do is you can start to deselect individual verts. But I'm thinking these top two need to go down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is actually click on them individually, these two, and then grab the arrow and kind of just drag them down a little bit so they're quite a little bit hidden. Then I'm going to drag the marquee over this one, and I'll just work on that one, then hold the shift key, grab that one at the same time, and then drag it up till I get, bring it in a little bit. And then, yeah, until I start to see, I want it to be close. That looks pretty close. It looks like there's one little vert here that if I just click on it and then bring it in, it's not likely to be visible. And that looks pretty good. Starting to dig that. Now, these edges are kind of strange. Like this edge kind of pulls out a little bit too much. So I'm going to right click, go to edge mode, click on this edge and kind of pull it back a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Click on this edge, pull it back. I can also pull it down or angle it a little bit. You notice here it's twisting a little bit, and that's just due to the fact that we pulled the geometry down. It's such an extreme angle. If you want to adjust that, you can also angle it just a little bit. Might do that on mine here. Also just kind of nudge it over a little bit. That looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is possibly create a bevel around the edge or an extrusion. I'm looking back at the image here of this detail. There seems to be like a little bit bevel edge around the outside. I think a bevel might be kind of good. So what we can do is actually select, right click, go to edge mode. And again, if that happens where you select both objects, just right click, go back to object mode, select the one object, click out. Sometimes you click out and then reselect, go to edge mode again. And I'm going to double click on the top one, and it selected that whole side, and then I'm going to double click on this side with the shift key, and I'm going to click on this one and this one. So essentially we have the whole top edge line all the way around, and I'm going to add a bevel to that. So I'm going to go to the mesh tools, edit mesh, choose bevel, and in here I can middle click and drag and basically get whatever kind of bevel I want. I think around 0.3 looks pretty cool. Yeah, it looks good. Right click, go to object mode, and voila, pretty much there. I think that's pretty much all the detail I need for that, because I'm not going to use a smooth preview or anything on this. So let's go ahead and now create one of those little bars that go across. Again, that would probably be good for the cube. So I'm going to click on the cube again. I'm going to scale it down quite a bit. Oops. Sometimes that happens where you accidentally go into what's called the hotkey mode. So if that happens, you can choose panels, perspective, and that's what happened there. So let's see here. What I want to do is scale it down a little bit this way, scale it down this way, and just keep scaling it down until I get something kind of flat like that. And what I want it to be is essentially the width across of here. So if I move it over and then drag down, essentially want it to be a little bit shallower than the width. Something like that's probably going to be good. And then bring it up a little bit. up direction. There we go. Now what we need to do is add an edge loop here and here on the ends, so that basically what we can do is have it an extrusion that comes down. So the insert edge loop tool is great for that. Now what I'm going to do is click on the tool settings, and I'm going to choose multiple edge loops here, in here, and then I'm going to choose 2 for the number of edges. So when I click in here, I'll have 2 edge loops, and then I can hit R and immediately scale them out by clicking on the yellow cube here and scale out to the edge like so. I always like to reset this tool when I'm done and then click on the arrow to escape out. But now what I can do is rotate underneath, and sometimes it's hard to rotate underneath. So what you can do is isolate this object by going to Show, Isolate, Select, and View Selected, and then rotate underneath it, and right click, go to Face Mode, and I'm going to choose these 2 faces here. Then go back to Show, Isolate, View, View Selected, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to extrude those 2 faces down. So I'm just grabbing the extrude tool, drag down until I get a little bit of penetration, and then basically what I can then do is delete those faces that are in there. Just hit the delete key, and those interior faces will go away because we really don't need those. Then right click, go back to object mode. Now if I do a smooth preview on this by hitting 3, you'll see what it looks like. It's kind of rounded, but kind of not great geometry, and if you look at these, they're kind of rounded a little bit. I'd like to have a little bit of form to that. So what I'm going to do is go back to 1, and what I want to do is go in here and go, let's see, to the edge. First thing I want to do is click on these 2 edges and hit R. I'm going to scale them in a little bit. Then I'm going to click on the outside edges. Sometimes you have to switch back to your selection tool to do this. Hold the shift key, click on both of those, scale that in a little bit. So I want them to go in like that a little bit, and then I want to add edge loops. So I'm going to click on the edge loop tool, and again I have multiple edge loops selected, it looks like, for this, which is fine. And I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to scale them out. So again, hitting R and then scale them out. So it kind of looks like this. Let's see. And then click on the arrow, right click, go to object mode, hit number 3, and now we got a cool little strap. So that'll work pretty well, I think, for these little straps coming across here and here. Now they are not exactly the correct size. Maybe it needs to be scaled down a little bit, but I think it's pretty close, you know. So I could easily duplicate those just by moving them and duplicating them by hitting Control D. Before you do that though, you want to delete history, freeze transformations, and center pivot on those objects. So under Modify, you have the center pivot. Under Edit, delete by type, you choose delete history. And then under, let's see, I believe it's under Modify, you have freeze transformations. Here it is right here, freeze transformations. I have hotkeys for all 3 of those. But what that allows you to do is to basically duplicate and clean up your geometry, essentially. So I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. I'm going to hit center pivot, freeze transformation, delete history. So those are ready to be duplicated and modified.